Good morning, folks. JB here with you live on WFLA Now, preparing to launch our live stream across all platforms as Governor Ron DeSantis teases a major announcement being made this morning, August 4th, 2022, at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. You see behind the podium members of the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, Sheriff Chad Chronister, expected, of course, to be in attendance for, again, a press conference with a major announcement. The exact subject of that announcement is unclear at this time, though we did get a bit of a hint recently from DeSantis' press secretary, Christina Pushaw, saying the governor plans to make a major announcement and told her followers on Twitter to, quote unquote, prepare for the liberal media meltdown of the year. That was the tweet from Pushaw. We've got WFLA's Masa Saidi, Evan Donovan covering today's major announcement. We are live from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office for the press conference that is expected to begin momentarily. As we await Governor DeSantis arriving to the podium for this major announcement in Tampa, Florida, a reminder, you can click on the link in the description on this video. It'll take you over to WFLA.com, the WFLA app, where we have everything that we know about this announcement ahead of it being made here at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. Again, we're here live on WFLA Now, taking a look and saying hello at those of you joining us on YouTube Live, including Sherry, Brett, Ramon, Jean, Brad, Robin, Mercedes. A lot of folks joining us on YouTube Live. Again, we're live a little bit early so that you can hear from Governor Ron DeSantis at the very beginning of his announcement when he takes to the podium here momentarily. Let's say a quick good morning to those of you joining us on the WFLA YouTube page. Hello, JB here with you live in the Stream Center. Again, live a little bit early so that you can hear from Governor Ron DeSantis right when he walks up to the podium to make this major announcement, as they are calling it, in Tampa, Florida. I've been seeing a lot of the comments in the YouTube Live comment section. A lot of folks speculating as to whether or not this is going to be an announcement of running in 2024. I'll just kind of put this out there. The chances of that happening are extraordinarily remote. This press conference, of course, in the lead up to Governor DeSantis' re-election bid, of course, running for governor once again here in the state of Florida. So the chances of this being related to 2024 in the eyes of, running for the White House, of course, that being extraordinarily remote. Just want to let our folks know that here. But again, we do have this tweet from DeSantis' press secretary, Christina Pushaw, saying that the governor plans to make a major announcement and told her followers to, quote, prepare for the liberal media meltdown of the year, end quote. What exactly that announcement is, we, of course, at WFLA, we've been digging, trying to talk to folks, trying to figure out exactly what this announcement pertains to. So far, this has been kind of kept under wraps. We do not know exactly what the subject matter of this press conference is. All that we know is that it's a major announcement and that it's been teased quite heavily by DeSantis' team on Twitter. So saying hello really briefly as we await for Governor DeSantis speaking, saying hello to a lot of the folks joining us in the YouTube Live comment section. Good morning to you wherever you are watching from. We are live from Tampa, Florida. Again, for Governor Ron DeSantis, expected to make a major announcement at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. You can see the deputies lined up behind the podium. The press conference and the major announcement, we're expected to learn exactly what it is momentarily. As we wait for the governor, you can let us know in the YouTube Live comment section, where are you watching from? And this is, of course, always a curious exercise when we're talking about a DeSantis press conference, because are you watching from Florida? Are you watching from another state? Or, of course, in the lens of YouTube, are you watching internationally? Are you joining us from another country? Let us know in the YouTube Live comment section. You don't have to, you can use hashtag KJB if you're trying to get my attention, but let us know in the comment section where exactly you are watching from. Again, standing by for the beginning of this press conference live from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in Tampa, Florida. As we take a look at the comment section here, we've got Minchell, hashtag HeyJB, watching from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. We've got hashtag JB from Kelly saying that she is watching from Vero Beach, Florida. Virginia is watching from Port St. Lucie. We've got Homestead watching from Missouri, Cleveland, Ohio in the house. They're scrolling in really quickly. Lori is joining us from Fort Myers Beach, Florida. Basil and Sage is joining us from South Carolina. So a lot of Florida folks joining us in our comment section, but Governor DeSantis, of course, attracting a lot of attention from folks across the country. So no surprise that we are getting folks joining us from other states here in the United States. Also, I've seen some folks joining us saying that they're joining us from Denmark, the United Kingdom, watching from Canada, says Stephen, saying hello to all of you, wherever you're watching from here on the WFLA YouTube page. Again, a major announcement expected here momentarily from Governor Ron DeSantis taking to the podium in front of deputies with the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. A brief signal lapse. We'll, of course, get our signal back here momentarily. And as we wait for the signal to come back, it will be back here in just a moment. We're probably just readjusting our cameras to get the best signal possible so we don't have any signal difficulties at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office for when this actually does in fact begin. Governor Ron DeSantis, of course, a rising figure in the GOP, has made plenty of headlines since defeating Andrew Gillum a few years back and becoming Florida's governor. He, of course, faces a challenge from the other side, from Democratic opponents. It will likely be either Charlie Crist, former governor of Florida, or Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried, one of those two Democratic challengers likely to be the challenger to take on DeSantis in his reelection bid this November as he runs for another term as governor. Most expect Governor DeSantis to be a clear-cut favorite in the race, the 2022 race, to win another term as Florida governor. Even so much so that of course, there's been so much speculation, endless speculation online with members of the media, the public at large, speculation that has been national and international about whether or not he is going to run for the White House in 2024. You can let us know what you think in the YouTube live comment section. You can use hashtag HeyJB if you'd like to get my attention. If you use hashtag HeyJB, I can shout out your name and your comment word for word. So we'll look for those as we try to get our signal back. I'm going to just step away from the microphone for just a brief second. Don't go anywhere. We're just going to check with our team here to make sure that everything's ready to go for this DeSantis press conference. Oh, okay, they've just switched sources. That's the reason. They put us on a clear signal path, and we now have it here live. Again, this is live from the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office in Tampa, Florida.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Thanks to Sheriff Chronister for having us here for today's announcement, and we're glad that we're back in Hillsborough County. Our government is a government of laws, not a government of men. And what that means is that we govern ourselves based on a constitutional system and based on the rule of law. But yet we've seen across this country over the last few years, individual prosecutors take it upon themselves to determine which laws they like and will enforce and which laws they don't like and then don't enforce. And the results of this in cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco have been catastrophic. You could go in San Francisco and steal a certain amount of merchandise, and you just would, by definition, not be prosecuted. That has undermined public safety. It has really hurt these communities, and it's been devastating to the rule of law. So as I saw that happening across the country earlier this year, I asked my staff in my office to look around the state of Florida and to make sure that that was not going to happen here, where you would have individual prosecutors nullify laws that were enacted by the people's representatives. They spoke with law enforcement throughout the state. They spoke with line prosecutors throughout the state, and it all came back to this area here in the 13th Judicial Circuit in Hillsborough County. And the response that we got was a lot of frustration on the part of law enforcement for criminals being let go and crimes not being prosecuted. And so we looked into it, and we compiled a lot of the record. And I can tell you it's been a very, very troubling record. So the prosecutor, state attorney for this judicial circuit, Andrew Warren, has put himself publicly above the law. In June of 2021, he signed a letter saying that he would not enforce any prohibitions on sex change operations for minors. And that's a debate that we're having mostly administratively and through medical licensing in Florida, but other states have enacted penalties on the people that would perform those, which are really disfiguring these young kids. And he said it doesn't matter what the legislature does in the state of Florida, he's going to exercise a veto over that. He's also instituted policies of, quote, presumptive non-enforcement. And this involves an array of different things, and you'll probably hear Sheriff Chronister and some of the other law enforcement officers talk about it, but that is not consistent with the role of a prosecutor. Yes, you can exercise discretion in an individual case, but that discretion has to be individualized and case specific. You can't just say you're not going to do certain offenses. And then most recently, after the Dobbs decision was rendered by the U.S. Supreme Court, he signed a letter saying he would not enforce any laws relating to protecting the right to life in the state of Florida. And mind you, we have had prohibition on third trimester abortions for a long time. We've had prohibitions on partial birth abortions for a long time. And then most recently, the legislature enacted and I signed protections for unborn babies at 3.5 months. And when they are aborted, it's typically done through a dismemberment procedure, which is really inhumane. Nevertheless, that is what the legislature has enacted, and it's not for him to put himself above that and say that he is not going to enforce the laws. We don't elect people in one part of the state to have veto power over what the entire state decides on these important issues. The Constitution of Florida has vested the veto power in the governor, not in individual state attorneys. And so when you flagrantly violate your oath of office, when you make yourself above the law, you have violated your duty, you have neglected your duty, and you are displaying a lack of competence to be able to perform those duties. And so today we are suspending State Attorney Andrew Warren effective immediately. We are not going to allow this pathogen that's been around the country of ignoring the law. We are not going to let that get a foothold here in the state of Florida. We are going to make sure that our laws are enforced and that no individual prosecutor puts himself above the law. And I can tell you the states and the localities that have allowed this to happen, they are ruining the day. You want to know why some people are moving to Florida? Because their communities are no longer safe thanks to prosecutors that think they know better than the people's representatives, and they get to pick and choose which laws that they are enforcing. So this was something that had a lot of input around the state. This is something that I think is a very, very important issue across our country, that this movement would be allowed to take hold, where you basically elevate your own personal conception of, quote, social justice over what the law requires of you. And I would note, those who say this represents social justice, look at San Francisco. They had to recall this prosecutor who was put in, funded by people like George Soros, saying he's not going to prosecute. They did the recall election. He was recalled, even in a very liberal jurisdiction, but the places that voted to keep him were the affluent communities who are not bearing the brunt of the policies. The places that voted to recall him were the working class communities, because they bear the burden of ignorance and refusal to enforce the law. And so what this is all about is really, when you uphold the rule of law, you are protecting the most vulnerable in our society. That's why we have a rule of law. And so I think today's action is obviously warranted. I know that there'll potentially be some, Florida Senate could potentially see this depending on how things are going out. But I just think that to take a position that you have veto power over the laws of this state is untenable. And I think it warrants the suspension and eventual removal of office. And so we're happy to be here with a number of people in law enforcement. And so I want to thank my friend and the sheriff here, Chad Chronister in Hillsborough County, and I'm going to have him come up and say a few things.
Thank you, Governor. We are extremely grateful the state of Florida and all of law enforcement have you. Each day I wake up, I leave my family, and I go to work with purpose and pride to uphold my oath of office and keep everyone in Hillsborough County safe. And the nearly 4,000 employees here at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office share these same values. We put our lives on the line for complete strangers. We are resolved to apprehend the criminals who prey on law-abiding citizens in our community. It's our duty, and we trust that our criminal justice system, the state attorney, public defender, and courts will fairly adjudicate the circumstances and hold those who are guilty accountable. Like law enforcement throughout the county, our criminal justice partners also take an oath to uphold the Constitution, the duly enacted laws of this state, and to be the voice for victims and the protectors of public interest. The governor's suspension of State Attorney Warren is not political to me. It's about law and order. It's about ensuring our loved ones are safe. It's about the victims and their voices. There aren't Republican and Democratic victims, just victims. They matter, and they should be heard. Over the last several years, State Attorney Warren has acted as an adjudicator of all, as if some type of supreme authority, by reducing charges, dropping cases, and single-handedly determining what crimes will be legal or illegal in our county. Ask yourself, aren't these the decisions for the courts or a jury of our peers? One of the more egregious examples occurred in September and involved a suspect who, after shooting someone, then opened fires on a residence where that victim sought refuge and protection. Inside of that house was the victim, his mother, other children, and extended family members who were forced to take cover and hide. To make things even worse, nearby was another mother and her twin infant children in a vehicle. One of the shooters, our suspect, was identified and arrested just a short few days later. After being released from jail, he was caught and arrested for committing another burglary, and while in jail, the state attorney's office no-files charges on the shooting and the separate burglary charge. Earlier this year, this very same suspect was again arrested for carrying a concealed firearm, and just last week, arrested for the second time on charges of carrying a concealed firearm. My point is, Like too many cases, why was this violent offender not held responsible for the original shooting? The state attorney's office explanation to our detective is the depositions would have been too lengthy and complicated. To add a little more context, the suspect, who faced no accountability for the shooting, we believe has gang affiliation and involvement in an unsolved homicide. One of the victims in this case, the mother, is extremely angry and frustrated with State Attorney Warren, feeling as though her status as a victim doesn't matter and the state attorney simply does not care. The victim wanted to be here today to tell her story herself, but has to work in order to provide for her family. The victim has lived in a motel since this shooting because she's too frightened to return to that home. Even in the face of this adversity, law enforcement continues to report for duty and uphold their obligation. As your sheriff, I continue to work with my law enforcement counterparts who privately are frustrated with the state attorney, who seems intently focused on empathy for criminals and less interested in pursuing justice for crime victims. As most everyone knows, I'm a tremendous proponent of reducing recidivism. I've created several diversion programs and continue to provide resources, education, and training opportunities for individuals to rehabilitate and improve themselves, while still holding offenders responsible for their actions. These efforts do not involve a blatant refusal to uphold the laws of our state. As the governor just outlined, and as Tampa law enforcement has seen over the years, empowering criminals through a lack of prosecution jeopardizes the safety of our Tampa Bay community and makes them even more brazen to commit additional crimes and continue to victimize the innocent. As the sheriff of Hillsborough County, I am committed to law and order, and I hold myself accountable to the people and would expect other elected members of our community to uphold these same values. Today, Governor DeSantis is holding State Attorney Warren accountable.
Okay, another one of our great sheriffs that many of you know, Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd.
Thank you very much, Governor. It's truly my honor to be a Florida sheriff. And I can tell you I've done this job my entire adult life. I remember, Governor, when the felons owned Florida. It was in the 70s and 80s. I remember that well. I was one of the cops on the street when we couldn't keep the felons locked up. We couldn't keep the criminals locked up, and they preyed on the community. And Governor, they didn't prey on the ones behind the gated communities in the $1 million and $500,000 homes. They preyed on what I call the real working people. And then a magic thing happened. We changed the laws. We decided to hold them accountable. And Governor, it was a Democrat governor that signed the legislation that started us down the path originally to make a positive difference. Now I look around the country today. I've seen a few things. I was recently the president of the Major County Sheriffs of America. I talked to and counseled with the sheriffs from the largest jurisdictions in the entire nation, to include the Los Angeles Sheriff's Office. In fact, the sheriff there was my vice president of the association at one time. And you know what they tell me? They tell me we got a dumpster fire going on in this nation. And you know who's getting burned by this dumpster fire? The working people. You know, it's not safe for people to walk the streets. The homeless aren't being looked out for. The mentally ill aren't being looked out for, and it's by the major people. Now, Governor, I know you'd be disappointed if you didn't see some cards. So let me give you a snapshot of the people that join Prosecutor Warren in not enforcing the law. We just won't enforce the law. It's the prosecutor in New Orleans. Per capita, it's the highest murder rate in the United States. You're going to see a common theme here in a minute. San Francisco, where businesses are closing, where they threw the prosecutor out because they weren't holding criminals accountable. Chicago, I think that speaks for itself. Los Angeles, where the sheriff told me I've got 60,000 homeless. We have criminals running wild. We have innocent people being victimized. And who's responsible there? The prosecutor, the chief prosecutor who's allowing it to occur. He has the law, he has the tools. Baltimore, Maryland. But that's not all. Then there's one of our favorite places, Portland, Oregon. You can set up a chop zone there and just not let the cops come in. You know how long there'd be a chop zone in Polk County? As long as it takes me to drive back there from here. New York, where they're not holding people accountable. Seattle, Washington, and Washington, D.C. So what's the commonality here? Just go look for yourself. Look at the data. The murders are up. Innocent people are being murdered where prosecutors don't do their job. My friend Chad Chronister just gave you an example. We don't have time to stand here all day, but listen. Prosecutor Warren, like the rest of us who ran for public office, we ask for your precious vote in order to enforce the law and do what was right. Then we took an oath to tell the truth, to uphold the Constitution, and to support the laws in the government. And we do that. And we're led by the greatest governor in the United States of America. But there are some, and it's the elected prosecutors that signed the papers that said they wouldn't prosecute. Not we'll evaluate it case by case. We won't prosecute. You know, they're not God. They're not the legislature. So at the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, this is about protecting the community we serve. This is about keeping people safe. And when you look at the highest murder rates, when you look where the quality of life is lowest, you look at the prosecutor who does not support law enforcement, who does not do what's right. Our governor does what's right. And Governor, I appreciate from the bottom of my heart you setting the example and doing the right thing and keeping the people safe. And the exciting thing is you not only protect the people behind the gated communities, you protect the people who clean the gates on those communities. Thank you. God bless you.
And now with the unenviable task of following Grady is Chris Naco from Pasco County.
Thank you. I've learned one thing. When I follow my friend Grady Judd, be brief and be on point. Because nobody else will hear anything else. So I will say I'm very proud to stand here with our governor, the Attorney General, and with Sheriff Chronister. You know, they know firsthand, and you'll hear from Chief Dugan, firsthand what happens here in Hillsborough County. But I can tell you is that it's very difficult for them when they go out, the men and women of the agencies, to protect our community, and then to turn around and find out those cases got no filed. To find out that they have to go back to a victim and say, sorry, this won't be prosecuted. Those are very difficult days for those individuals. It's very difficult for the men and women in uniform. And I can tell you, let me go back to that point. The women and men in uniform. We are family people. We are people in our community. We take these uniforms off every day and we spend time with our family, but this is our community. This is where we live. And so for those that live in Hillsborough County, to see incidents where they were at a crime scene, but nothing was done to the criminal, and the victim was left alone, and the victim was ignored, that's horrible. And I can tell you, I'm blessed to work and live in a circuit where we have a state attorney That state attorney works with us, and we uphold the U.S. Constitution, we uphold the Florida Constitution, and we uphold the statutes in the state of Florida. We treat everybody with respect. We treat everybody equally. We ensure that victims' voices are heard. At the same time, if the criminals commit a crime, there will be consequences for their actions. There's a simple process. And as the sheriff said, we are voted and we are elected to uphold the Constitution in the state of Florida. We don't have a choice to say, no, we're not policymakers. We're not in Tallahassee creating the laws, we're enforcing the laws. That's our role and our responsibility to the citizens that we serve. And I will tell you, Mr. Governor, I'll echo those words. We live in a state with probably the greatest governor. This is the greatest governor in our country. And I say that because I'm not a native Floridian. I moved down myself, but I have buddies that I went to high school with. They're in law enforcement up in other states, and they will tell me how difficult it is for them. They will tell me what they go through, and they say, I'm just trying to get to my pension. That means they're just trying to get to retirement so they can move. We live in a state, we have a governor that will defend us. He will make decisive decisions. It's not just about today, but when schools need to be open, he kept the schools open. When you need to keep Florida moving, businesses growing, businesses were growing. That is a direct impact into public safety, because when people have opportunities to grow and jobs are created, that means people want to move to Florida. And that is the best statistic we can say about our state. People are moving here every day. They are moving here because of the decisions our governor is making. Governor DeSantis is leading our state. He is making those decisions that are tough, but they're decisive, and they're making Florida better every day. Thank you, Governor, for doing that.
All right. Well, we're rolling with Tampa Bay Law Enforcement Hall of Fame with now our Attorney General from here in Hillsborough County, Ashley Moody.
You know, I know the governor appreciates everyone being here today, and I know the folks behind me that wake up every day and put on a gun and a badge and a bulletproof vest appreciate this strong leadership. Where you are seeing an eradication of stability and safety around our nation, starting with our border, into our large cities, into our states, it's because an executive who has been trusted to enforce and execute laws has abandoned that responsibility. When you see record overdoses, record crime, it is because an executive does not care enough to stand strong and do his or her job. In our state, our top executive is Governor Ron DeSantis, and our Constitution requires that he ensure, it is his duty, he cannot ignore when our laws are not faithfully executed. And so the fact that we have an executive that is willing to dig in and talk to the line officers and understand where executives, prosecutors aren't meeting the expectations and demands and responsibilities of their role, he has no other choice to step in and ensure the safety of the state and these communities. When Andrew Warren first took office, he proudly joined with prosecutors from New York, Washington, LA, and said, I will not enforce and be tough on crime. Proudly, I will not be tough on crime. And thereafter, we saw repeatedly his refusal, his outright statements. I will not enforce this law. I will not enforce that law. I will not do this. Let me tell you who makes the laws and decides what's criminal. It's you. It's the people of this state, through their elected representatives. They decide what the laws should be for the protection of their communities and their families. An executive cannot come in and eradicate that, do away with that, ignore that, because that's what creates instability. That's what creates crime across this nation and within Florida. And when you see prosecutors out there that blame the victims or blame businesses for not having better security and not themselves for not putting criminals behind bars, when a prosecutor puts crime above law and order, you're gonna have a problem. Law enforcement knows that. They deal with it every day. And that is why, when folks around this nation started talking about reducing police forces, defunding police, our governor stood up and said, oh no, how do we increase funding? How do we give our police raises? How do we recruit more to the state of Florida? And under his leadership, we launched a Be a Florida Hero program. I am proud to tell you, we have record number of officers moving to Florida from other states because their governors don't uphold the law and don't back the blue. We're going to see a lot more Florida heroes in the months to come. And we are very, very grateful for the strong, attentive, detail-oriented leadership of this governor and the fact that he takes seriously his responsibility to faithfully ensure that our laws are executed and our people are safe. Thanks, Governor.
Okay, former Chief of Police here in Tampa, Brian Dugan.
Thank you. You know, when it comes to Sheriff Chronister, Sheriff Judd, Naco, and our good governor, clearly I drew the short straw when it came to good looks and hair. So, but thank you for having me here. You know, Governor, it's a bittersweet day, quite frankly. We should not be here. We should have had someone who did their job. The governor should not have had to come to Hillsborough County and clean up our mess. And that's really what it comes down to. And I appreciate the fact and admire the fact that you have the intestinal fortitude to stand here and do this. And this is a governor who's not afraid to stand alone in the storm. And I will always stand by you. So there's probably no one more in the room that's more frustrated with Andrew Warren than me and Sheriff Chronister. And he spoke. And I will try to make this brief. But let me tell you something. Andrew Warren is a fraud. Yeah, did you get that? Look, I've never been good at sugarcoating anything. That's probably why it took me 28 years to become chief of police. He's a fraud. He has misled the people of Hillsborough County. Do you remember back during the riots when we arrested 67 people one night? And then a few weeks later, he has a press conference. And what does he say in his press conference? He says that there were no acts of violence, no property damage. He must not have read the police report. There were pictures of a police car with broken windshields. As the cops tried to get out of the cars, protesters pushed their doors shut on them and wouldn't allow them out of the cars. So when you say there's no acts of violence, when you say there's no property damage in a press conference, where I come from, you're lying. Okay? I'm not elected. I was appointed. I'm not running for office right now. I'm here because I believe in keeping this community safe. I have 2 children and a wife that are residents of Hillsborough County in the city of Tampa, and it's about accountability and us being able to go out for dinner at night and not feel like we're going to get jacked by somebody. Those 67 people that got arrested, Andrew Warren said in his press conference that he would work with local law enforcement to expunge those arrests. He does not have the ability to do an administrative expungement on those arrests. You know how many articles have been written about how he expunged those arrests? How would you like to be one of those 67 people that got arrested and you think that arrest has been expunged? Ask Andrew Warren how many of those expungements he did. And the answer will be 0. Not a single arrest had been expunged. He has misled our community, and it's time that our governor stepped in. And like I said, this is a terrible day that our governor had to come and clean up our mess. Thank you.
Okay, now we have Representative Mike Beltran from the Florida House.
Well, thank you, Governor, and thank you, everyone, for being here. These are some really tough acts to follow. And I'm one of the few folks up on this stage who doesn't have a gun and a badge. And so, you know, I'm certainly, first of all, thanks to our law enforcement. But what I do have, I got a suit, I got a tie, and I got a rule book. And in that rule book is the Constitution. And the Constitution sets forth separation of powers. And separation of powers says that folks like me go out and get folks like you to vote for them to make the law. And when we do that, we send it to the governor, and he decides if it's a good law or a bad law. And sometimes he doesn't sign it, but he's signed all of my things. But had a pretty good track record, but he usually signs it. And then the folks behind me, their job is to enforce it. And then the courts, they adjudicate cases and controversies. And if Mr. Warren wanted to legislate, he should run every 2 years instead of every 4. And we could have done something about that. We wouldn't have had to do this. Okay? But he wants to go, he needs to get out of the courthouse, not that he's there anyway, and go up to the State House and legislate, because this is a complete violation of separation of powers. And I want to say something about the governor. Okay? I was reading a book by a former senator, and it said, it's not so much what you do in the situation you're in, it's what did you do differently than somebody else who's in that same situation. And we have 50 governors, and we got about a dozen states where there's prosecutors like Mr. Warren. And some of those prosecutors have been recalled. But we haven't, this is the first governor that stood up and said, enough is enough, okay? And our Attorney General has been a partner in the executive branch, and so is Sheriff Chronister and Sheriff Judd and Sheriff Naco and the rest of my good friends behind me. But I want to talk about constitutional separation of powers. Let's look at the Constitution. Article 4 of the state Constitution, under which the governor has his powers. Second sentence, Section 1A. Second thing that it says about the governor. Take care that the laws be faithfully executed. Going down to Section 7A, first sentence. The governor may suspend from office any state officer not subject to impeachment, any county officer for malfeasance, misfeasance, neglect of duty, drunkenness, incompetence, permanent inability to perform official duties, or commission of a felony, and may fill the office by appointment for the period of suspension. I'm not going to say which boxes Mr. Warren checks, because it might be a couple. And I'm not sure the speech and debate clause protects what I say here, but everyone knows it's true. But not only is the governor allowed to do this, as the Attorney General said, he's required. He's required to do this. And those other governors are required to do it. I don't know why they don't do it. Mr. Warren has abdicated his role, okay? Now I want to talk about a case that someone talked about gated communities, and I'm just going to own it. That's my district. We're a suburban paradise. Just 20 miles from here. It's a beautiful community, and we follow the law, and we expect other people to follow the law. And somebody came into my community, and we talked about protecting the unborn. We talked about protecting kids who may be confused. But what about just regular kids who are out at Park Square in the middle of the summer on their summer vacation? And this man abducted 2 girls from a park area outside of a restaurant. And he took these girls down several blocks, and he was passing a church. And there were folks setting up for a church event. And he says to these folks, he said, these are my daughters. When I walk with my sons down the street, I don't go, these are my sons. That should be obvious. So they knew that something was up. And there's a gentleman here, his name's Derek Zitko, a constituent of mine. And him and some of his fellow parishioners were able to call the police, separate the girls from this man, get the man out of the church, get the girls inside the church, and then when the man realized the police were coming, the sheriffs were coming, he ran back to the bar where I guess he got drunk, and Mr. Zitko followed him such that the police were able to track him and the man did not escape. And Mr. Zitko risked his life and took his time and energy, and the sheriff was able to do his job and arrest this man. What do you think the state attorney did? What do you think the state attorney did? Do you think he requested remand? Did he request detention? No, he did not. When I called him, I said, Mr. Warren, I texted him. I called, he didn't take my call. He doesn't take my calls. I texted him so that there's a record. I texted him, and he said he had someone else call. He wasn't a man enough to call me back. He had someone else call me back. He's the conservative handler at the office. Very nice guy. And he says, I can't give you the file. It's a pending investigation. So I said to my aide, I said, go down to the courthouse, pull the tape. It's a public record. They have to give it to you whether they like it or not. Pull the tape. 50 seconds. 50 seconds. No request for bond. No request for detention. $100,000 bond. The man easily meets the bond and escapes. Or gets out. Released, not escape. I'm so mad I'm having trouble with my I usually don't have trouble with this type of thing. And then I called. I said, I want you to make the motion. I want you to file all the charges. And they don't do that. And then we were able to come up with a solution. I'm not going to say what it was. I don't know where the guy is. It was a temporary solution. I heard he was in Colorado or someplace. I don't know where he is. And my question is, he should be in the jail. We should know where he is. And if not him, who belongs at the jail? And if not now, when are they planning to put him there? And if Andrew Warren was he going to wait for another child? And if Andrew Warren's not going to put him in the jail, then what do we need him for? That's right. Thank
you. So I want to thank everybody for coming in and providing some insight. Obviously, when you do a suspension, that's part of it, but then you also have to name a replacement. And so I'm happy to be able to do that today. And she's here with us, and it's Judge Susan Lopez, who currently serves as a county judge here in Hillsborough County and has extensive experience as a prosecutor. And she has deep ties to this community. She did serve 15 years in the office in the 13th Judicial Circuit, and I think she understands the role of the state attorney is to apply the law and enforce the law, not pick and choose which laws you like and which laws you don't like. Okay, Judge, come on up. All right.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for being here today. I want to first thank Governor DeSantis for placing his trust in me to execute the duties of State Attorney of the 13th Judicial Circuit. I was caught off guard a couple of days ago when I got the call from the governor. I was sitting very happily as a judge, which has been a life-changing and fulfilling form of service. But when the governor calls you to a different service, you answer. So here I am. I hold the utmost respect for our state laws, and I understand the important role that the state attorney plays in ensuring the safety of our community. It is my promise to the people of Hillsborough County that I will faithfully execute the duties of this office and to ensure that we are fulfilling its purpose to prosecute crimes and protect the people of Hillsborough County. I will follow the rule of law. And to the hardworking people of the Office of the State Attorney of Hillsborough County, I look forward to rejoining you in our shared mission to protect the people of Hillsborough County. Thank you very much.
Congratulations. And so we're, I think it is true. You don't want to have to be here, but we really believe that this is a law and order state. We are not going to back down from that 1 inch. We are not going to allow locally elected people to veto what our state has decreed through our legislative process. And so this is important. We've seen how this has impacted communities all across the country in a very negative way. And at the end of the day, when you take an oath to support and defend the Constitution, you must take care that our laws are faithfully executed, and that will start happening in Hillsborough County beginning today. Okay. Are you going to ask on topic today?
On topic
okay.
for the first time, Governor. Thank you so much for being here. You've made your case. You have some powerful supporters behind you right now. But Andrew Warren was elected by the people of Hillsborough County not once but twice. So what do you say to people in the community who say that you're taking their vote away?
Well, the conduct that he has done has fell below the standard that's required in the Florida Constitution. When you're saying you're not going to enforce certain laws you don't like, that's a neglect of duty. That, quite frankly, is incompetence as defined in Florida law. And Florida courts have been very clear that saying you're just not going to enforce the law is by definition a dereliction of duty. And so what we're doing is just, as they said, I mean, in some respects, I'm here, I have to do this. I mean, that's my job to ensure that the laws are faithfully executed. And so we have that process in place for a reason, because I think the people that framed our most recent Constitution understood that you would need to have some accountability. And yes, I understand you have these processes, but quite frankly, you know, we can go back and look at some of these elections and all the money that's coming in from people that do not live in Florida and are really trying to push an agenda on the people of Florida. And I don't think the people of Hillsborough County want to have an agenda that is basically woke, where you're deciding that your view of social justice means certain laws shouldn't be enforced. I don't think there's very many people that believe that is consistent with the rule of law. Yes, sir.
Governor, yesterday you reported that there's an unattended ballot box in Broward County at the Broward.
Well, before I do that, is there anyone else on this topic? So, yes. No, because I was looking at the actual facts that were provided to me. We were able to, my office consulted with a lot of people. This was a statewide review to make sure that we were not going down the road of San Francisco, Los Angeles. And like 95% of it was all right here in Hillsborough. Everything anyone said was right here. I didn't hear the same in Duval or Miami-Dade or any of that. It was all right here. And then to see these blanket statements like saying that you're not going to enforce a prohibition on giving minor a sex change operation. You know, a 12-year-old boy can't go in and get a tattoo, but yet somehow, if the legislature were to say that you can't get a sex change operation, and then we have laws that have been enacted. And so he was the only one that was making those types of declarations. He was the only one signing his name to letters that basically said, to hell with the people of Florida, I'm going to do what I want. You know, we take care that the laws are faithfully executed. Not every law on the books in Florida do I agree with. I mean, it is what it is. And yes, there's sometimes the legislature will put laws on my desk that I veto, and then it doesn't become law. They have the ability to override. They haven't done that yet. But that's just the way the system works. And for example, if it ever got to the point where I vetoed a piece of legislation and the legislature overrode it, I don't think that'll happen, but if it did, then I would be duty bound to enforce that law. I can't just say, you know what, and throw a hissy fit and say, oh, I don't think it's good and I'm not going to enforce. That's not the way the law works. And so and if you look around the country, the root of a lot of the problems is that this idea has taken hold that you can be a law unto yourself as a prosecutor, that it doesn't really matter what the legislature does. If you believe that that law conflicts with your idiosyncratic vision of, quote, social justice, then that gives you veto authority. And that is not how a constitutional system can operate. That is not how a rule of law can operate. And ultimately, you know, you cannot have safe and strong communities if we're not having enforcement of the law.
There's been criticism of Andrew Warren for a while from law enforcement officials, but what was it that led you to ultimately make this decision? Was it his signing that letter regarding the not having abortion cases last month?
Well, so as I said, as these problems around the country were coming to a head, I asked my office earlier this year to do a survey of what's going on in Florida to see, you know, because there's not every prosecutor is going to write on a sheet of paper, I'm not prosecuting, I'm going to ignore. I mean, that's a very egregious thing to do. But you will have sometimes policies which are de facto nullifications of the law. So they will say, well, you may be able to prosecute, but in circumstances that would never happen. So it required them to go and do a lot of different things. But yes, when you have the 2021 letter saying no matter what a state declares about protecting child welfare with respect, I mean, you know, they use these euphemisms, but what it is they are literally chopping off the private parts of young kids, and that's wrong. And you know, we're doing stuff administratively and with medical licenses, but you know, the legislature in Florida may want to come in and do something more significant on that. Okay, what, you're going to presumptively say you can't do it? Some of the policies that have been in place, and then after Dobbs comes down, where the Supreme Court said this is returned to the states to say that the laws that we have, you're just not going to enforce any of them, and he drew no distinction. I mean, we've always had prohibition on third trimester abortion. We've always had prohibition, or at least for a while, on partial birth, and now the 3.5 months. It's okay, that was a legislative debate. There were some people that had different views on it. The legislature passed it. I signed it. So that's what you have to do. So those are really, I think, egregious. And again, it's beyond just exercising discretion, whereas discretion would be I may get an individual case and make a determination, you know, that we're not going to go with prosecution because you have limited resources, what have you. Where it goes across the line is where that ends up being used to effectively nullify what the legislature has done. And clearly you've had that here in Hillsborough County. All right, Javier, is that the Broward? So I just saw that this morning. We have now an election integrity unit. We've got people that are investigating different things as these things come up. That's exactly why we did this, because we can pass all the great laws we want. And in Florida, we're very proud that we've made ballot harvesting a felony in the state of Florida. We're very proud that we have voter ID, not just for going in to vote in person, but for requesting an absentee ballot. We're very proud that we were able to have penalties for counties if they don't clean their voting rolls every year. And we're very proud that we banned Zuckerbucks in the state of Florida. So those are all good. Those are all great, but then the issue is okay, you can have that, but then people violate it and then there's no accountability, then where does that leave us? And so that's why we asked the legislature to enact an election integrity unit in state government where we have investigators, we have law enforcement, we have the ability to work with the Attorney General's office, with our statewide prosecutor, to be able to hold people accountable if they're not following the law. So we have very clear rules. First of all, you cannot put drop boxes in the middle of the community in Florida anymore. We got rid of that. If someone wants to return an absentee ballot, they can drop it off at an election site, but wherever they're putting in a ballot needs to be monitored by an election official the whole time. And there's video coming out saying this thing's just sitting there with no monitoring. You know, that obviously isn't consistent with the law. So we have in place the ability to investigate this stuff. That is being done, and we're going to make sure that our elections are done consistent with the laws of the state of Florida. And you look around the country, they've been doing these elections in different parts this year, and you have an election, and then you have votes coming in for days and days, and people don't even know how many votes are out. It takes them forever to count. It's a very opaque process. We don't believe in that in Florida. We believe it's got to be transparent. We believe you count the votes and you declare a winner on election night. That's not that difficult to do. We're one of the biggest states, and we're able to do it. Why can't some of these other states do it? So So we're going to be, this is a very high priority to make sure that what we're doing, or what all the different 67 counties are doing, is following the law in the state of Florida. And honestly, it's not much different than the principle that brings us here today. I mean, yes, you can get elected to countywide office, but when you take office, you swear to uphold the laws and Constitution of the state of Florida. And so if you're not doing that, well, then that's something we need to have accountability and recourse for. So, okay, well, thanks, everybody. We appreciate seeing you.
Thank you very much.
Governor Ron DeSantis speaking at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, shaking the hands of Florida sheriffs and deputies with HCSO. We heard from Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, Hillsborough County Sheriff Chad Chronister, Pasco Sheriff Chris Naco, as well as Tampa Police Chief Brian Dugan. Of course, Attorney General Ashley Moody speaking as well, as expected, as some of the attendees discussing what they just heard from Governor DeSantis at the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. We're going to make sense of all this for you folks here on WFLA Now. Welcome to the Stream Center. JB here with you. To our Facebook Live and YouTube Live audience, hello there to you. Again, what was teased as a major announcement by Governor DeSantis, more of a major announcement with local implications. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a lot about what you think of Governor DeSantis' announcement, what you think about his prospects for re-election later on this year in 2022 when he goes up against likely either Charlie Crist or Nikki Fried. We're going to talk about 2024. We're going to talk about all of it. Use hashtag HeyJB. We'll get your comments out of the Facebook Live and YouTube Live comment section. But this right here, folks, this is now suspended State Attorney Andrew Warren, Democrat here in Hillsborough County, who you just heard get slammed by Governor DeSantis and numerous sheriffs here in the Tampa Bay area, including Sheriff Chad Chronister, who, of course, is the sheriff for Hillsborough County, as well as Polk County Sheriff Grady Judd, other officials taking to the mic there after DeSantis. A lot to break down here, and we're going to do so starting with the release by DeSantis and the executive order itself to try to make sense of this. I think that there were some in the comment section who were pointing to this being a move that was politically motivated. That's, of course, up to you in the comment section as to whether or not you believe this move to be politically motivated. Of course, Governor DeSantis, of course, being a Republican governor, Andrew Warren being a state attorney who, of course, ran as a Democrat, is a Democratic state attorney, taking office, I believe, in 2017. And we're going to get into all of this and answer as many questions as possible. For those of you joining us on Facebook Live, we're going to be ending this live stream momentarily for the purpose of making room for some other live streams on Facebook Live. Facebook and YouTube work a little bit differently. So what we're going to do is we're going to end our stream on Facebook Live. And if you'd like to be part of this conversation, where we're going to take your comments, your questions, your thoughts of DeSantis, your thoughts of Andrew Warren, your thoughts of our sheriff speaking in opposition of Andrew Warren and in support of the suspension, if you would like to be part of that conversation, head over to either WFLA.com, the WFLA app, or you can do so interactively by joining us on the WFLA YouTube page, where we'll continue to have a healthy and appropriate conversation. We know the comments online can get sometimes inappropriate. We're going to try to keep the train on the tracks, as we say here on WFLA Now. So we're ending our stream on Facebook Live. If you'd like to read the latest on this story, head over to WFLA.com, the WFLA app, and click on the link in the description on this video on Facebook Live. And if you're joining us on YouTube, we'll see you there, over there on YouTube. So for our YouTube Live audience, let's check in and say hello to all of you joining us here. I know that obviously Governor DeSantis, his announcement was what you tuned in for. But if you want to get a little bit more context, and if you just want to have a little bit more of a conversation about Governor DeSantis as the de facto Republican Party leader, of course, in the state of Florida, as a up-and-comer, of course, in conservative circles, as far as his name being frequently mentioned as a up-and-coming candidate possibly for 2024 in relation to another candidate. If Donald Trump, of course, throws his hat in the ring, we do not know if he is going to, of course, announce his run for 2024. There's been tons of speculation. I think that most of the, where there's smoke, there's fire, right? I think that a lot of the conversation that has been had in recent months about Donald Trump is pointing to him attempting a run in 2024 and throwing his hat in the ring. But Governor DeSantis, of course, is somebody who has been extraordinarily popular, not just in the state of Florida, but with conservatives across the country. And what that looks like, if DeSantis does have his eyes on the White House in 2024, what that looks like with Trump really still in many people's vision in the Republican Party, being the leader of the Republican Party, what that actually turns out to become, of course, is going to be extraordinarily fascinating for the GOP and really for the entire United States, as whether or not is Trump going to announce 2024 that he is running and he's going to do so with very little to no opposition, or is, as some would say, is Governor DeSantis the future of the GOP and next in line, if you will, to take over as the face of the party? We'll get into this more. Saying hello to Joan, Patricia, Linda. Thank you to our moderators. Mystery Maven, thank you for our moderators on the YouTube live page here on WFLA's YouTube account. Really appreciate it. But I want to focus on Andrew Warren for a moment, because this does have a major impact on the landscape of law and law enforcement in Hillsborough County. Hillsborough County, for those of you unaware, for those of you who have never been with us here before, Hillsborough County is Tampa. That's really is the Tampa, Florida is in Hillsborough County, and Tampa and Hillsborough County on the whole is a very it's a purple county. We have in large part we have Republicans in our district. We have a lot of Democrats. Our mayor here in Tampa Mayor Jane Castor is a Democrat, ran as a Democrat, won as a Democrat, former police chief with TPD. We also have, of course, Republican leaders here in Hillsborough County as well. So very much a purple county within the state. And so this move, we have Governor DeSantis bringing in a lot of course, the conservative Florida sheriffs that many of you know. Some of them you know, of course, by first name, thinking, of course, about Grady Judd. You just know him as Grady. I saw the comment section light up with Grady. We did not know that Grady Judd was going to be at this press conference, but he was there. A very popular sheriff in Florida, of course, coming over from Polk County over to Tampa in support of DeSantis' announcement. This is very much a move that, in some respects, some are going to see this. And I was highlighting some of the commenters who saw this as a move that, in their estimation and in their view, this is a politically motivated sort of chess move. But this is also something in Republican circles and in law enforcement circles, something that we have heard about as Andrew Warren being a source of frustration for those in Republican circles for quite some time. So Andrew Warren is the state attorney, Democrat state attorney for Hillsborough County. Of course, working in tandem with Chad Chronister, working in tandem with various major law enforcement officials. He has now been suspended at the order of Governor DeSantis. And I have it right here. Governor DeSantis suspending Andrew Warren, state attorney for Hillsborough County, under Article 4, Section 7 of the Florida State Constitution, and enacting the appointment of Susan Lopez, who you heard from there, as state attorney for the period of the suspension. And Governor DeSantis saying during the press conference that he has that he mentioned, of course, the possibility of Andrew Warren being permanently removed, that this not being a temporary move. In all, from everything that we have heard here, this is a move that has been done temporarily, a temporary suspension, if you will. And what the review will look like for Andrew Warren and what legal options that he has, that, of course, remains to be seen. However, this is, of course, a very significant move locally in the Tampa Bay area, with Governor DeSantis removing a Democratic state attorney and installing a state attorney, really, as basically, from what I'm reading, a state attorney of his choosing. Again, you just heard from her, Susan Lopez, who will now be the state attorney, at least in a temporary capacity, for Hillsborough County. So this is again major news for the Tampa Bay area. I'm just responding to some notes here. Major move for the Tampa Bay area. And one that, of course, let me go back to what we were talking about earlier on WFLA.com really briefly. This was never going to be an announcement about 2024. We talked about that in advance of DeSantis' announcement. This was always going to be something, this was teased as something that was going to lead to a quote-unquote liberal media meltdown. And while I think that caught the attention of a lot of people across the country. I got messages about it this morning saying, what is this going to be? I think it comes to as a bit of a surprise that this move was as localized to the Tampa Bay area and to Hillsborough County as it was when it was made to be such a major, significant liberal media meltdown type of announcement. So interesting announcement from Governor DeSantis, one that has major implications for the area. And again, talking about Andrew Warren here for a second, we're going to get to your hashtag KJB comments in just a second. I just want to get this out there. This is really important because I have the executive order that was signed by Governor DeSantis to suspend Andrew Warren. Now, I want to go over what is listed as the rhetoric as to why he was suspended. And I'm going to go over just, it's 29 pages, the document, the executive order. I'm not going to read all 29 pages. Believe me, it's a long document. But I'm going to read through some of the cases, the top several ones that DeSantis in the executive order highlights as reasoning and rationale for his suspension of Andrew Warren. I'm going to read it here as follows. The first one, Warren, I'm reading this now. Warren demonstrated his incompetence and willful defiance of his duties as state attorney as early as June 2021, when he signed a joint statement with other elected prosecutors in support of gender transition treatments for children and bathroom usage based on gender identity. The statement reading, "We pledge to use our discretion and not promote the criminalization of gender-affirming healthcare or transgender people." That's one case. It continues. Whereas, although the Florida legislature has not enacted such criminal laws, these statements prove that Warren thinks he has the authority to defy the Florida legislature and nullify in his jurisdiction criminal laws with which he disagrees. Whereas, based on this fundamentally flawed and lawless understanding of his duties as state attorney, Warren has acted as a law unto himself by instituting a policy during his current term of presumptive non-enforcement for certain criminal violations, including a trespassing at a business location, disorderly conduct, disorderly intoxication, and prostitution. Warren has also instituted a policy during his current term against prosecuting crimes where the initial encounter between law enforcement and the defendant results from a non-criminal violation in connection with riding a bicycle or a pedestrian violation. This presumption of non-prosecution applies even to crimes of misdemeanor, resisting arrest without violence, for example, fleeing from a law enforcement officer. The only exemption to the policy is where this is a direct threat to public safety, such as where an individual has suffered physical harm or where a firearm is involved. So basically what this amounts to is DeSantis accusing Andrew Warren of being selective of which laws in Hillsborough County, Florida laws, to enforce. And some cases being enforced, other cases not. I think that with state attorneys, and I'm not sure if this is a problem I think this goes with state attorneys all over the country. There's never going to be a 100% success rate when it comes to the enforcement of the law. But what Governor DeSantis is accusing Andrew Warren of is blatantly selecting laws in which to enforce and other cases to just fall by the wayside. So that, of course, it's very interesting. And I'm going to check right now to see if Andrew Warren has put out a statement of some kind. Also, I'm really curious. My first thought of this, when Governor DeSantis made this announcement was, did Andrew Warren know this was coming? Likely did, through various political contacts, finding out in advance that this was going to be, of course, the subject of the press conference. And if that is in fact the case, very curious to know what his political response is going to be, and what his legal options are now that he has been suspended. Make no mistake about it, while this isn't the massive, gargantuan national news that you were probably tuning in for, this is still major news in Hillsborough County to have a Republican governor like DeSantis come into Hillsborough County, one of the major counties in his state, one of the biggest counties in his state, come in, through executive order, remove a state attorney who is a top honcho as far as the law goes here in the county, remove him, suspend him, and install your own state attorney for the time being. Again, it's a major power move on Governor DeSantis' part, and now how Democrats in the Florida Democratic Party responds and how Andrew Warren responds is, of course, going to be fascinating. We'll have the latest coverage on it tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. We'll have more on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. But yeah, Andrew Warren, I'm really curious to hear your response to this. Obviously, you woke up this morning as the state attorney in Florida, and right now you're a state attorney for Hillsborough County, and right now you're not. That's, of course, a massive turn of events, and I'm sure that his team right now is preparing a response and also exploring the legal options, probably combing through the same 29 pages that we are here at WFLA. So with that said, with that out there, we can take questions about Andrew Warren. We can take questions about Governor DeSantis. We can take questions about this press conference and this announcement. Use hashtag HeyJB. In fact, let's launch our interactivity and get this loaded into our system so that we can start to feature your hashtag HeyJB comments. I think that a lot of you are likely here to discuss Governor DeSantis and what you think of him as a political candidate, whether it be for Florida or whether it be for the United States. But what we'll do now is we will take your questions, your comments out of the YouTube Live comment section. And if you use hashtag HeyJB on my screen, I'll even show it to you here. On my screen right here, here are your comments, right over here on the screen. Saying hello in our comment section to Athena, to Darth Negatron. That's a name. Wow. Donnie, Rosebud, a lot of folks joining us in the YouTube Live comment section. If you might be able to see it on my screen, do you see these comments that are like brighter? It's because they use hashtag HeyJB. Those are the comments that I can animate on screen. So if you're trying to get my attention, if you want something to be heard, if you want your voice to be heard, that's our mission statement here at WFLA Now, to give you a voice. So we can dissect your questions. We can feature your opinion, your stance on what has just transpired in this live stream. But I have no tolerance for nasty comments, inappropriate comments, comments that are counterproductive to the subject matter at hand. So I'm just not going to put up comments on screen that don't, of course, keep the train on the tracks, as we say. So please, in fact, just try to keep it clean, and we'll try to animate your comments out of the YouTube Live comment section. But this was what, and I'm really glad that we have this comment from Catalina, because this is a fundamental question to this announcement by Governor DeSantis, and it comes in from Catalina. This is the question that was asked by our investigators, the first question that was asked by Masa Saidi. Many of you on WFLA Now's live streams know Masa Saidi. She's been on with us many times before. And Masa asked a question about removing power from individual voters. Andrew Warren, regardless of what you think of Andrew Warren, and there are going to be many Andrew Warren supporters in Hillsborough County, a lot of Andrew Warren opponents in Hillsborough County, a lot of that will likely fall on party lines. However, Andrew Warren was elected. He ran as a Democrat. He won as a Democrat. He is an elected official in Hillsborough County. And what Masa was asking was, in essence, you're taking power out of the voters' hands in Hillsborough County by removing somebody from office who was elected by the people. So what Catalina's comment is, hashtag HeyJB, this is very concerning. What's the point of people voting for an official if the highest ranking one in Florida will just appoint someone he likes more? This does, you could argue that this, of course, puts elected officials across Florida, Democrats most notably, on notice. Because Andrew Warren, now look, I think that the Republican response to that would be Republicans are going to accuse Andrew Warren of not doing his job to the fullest extent of the law. But this, of course, is something that gets viewed in the context, and many of the comments that I've seen already come in so far, many have viewed in the context of a Republican governor removing a Democratic state attorney in Hillsborough County, one of the major hubs, population hubs here in the state of Florida. So do you agree? I'm going to put this out to our commenters. Do you agree with Catalina saying that this takes power away from you? If you're joining us from here in Florida, this takes power away from the people. Do you agree with that argument, what Catalina is pointing out here, and what Massa was asking about as a result of the press conference? So Tampa Rob, hello Tampa Rob. I would imagine that you're joining us from Tampa. Hello. Says #HeyJB, you can't decide not to enforce the law even though you were elected. And that's, I think, what would be the response from the other side, is that regardless of party, if you are not enforcing the law to the best of your ability, and if you are being selective in the cases that you take, then, of course, you're not doing your job and honoring the Florida Constitution. I think that would be the response, of course, from the other side. Reading some... Yeah, this is an excellent question, Terry, and I'll be honest. This is my first encounter with Governor DeSantis removing somebody with this much authority in his state, to just remove somebody like that. Terry Jackson, #HeyJB, how can the governor remove Warren without a hearing of some sort? This is very interesting, and with this suspension being a temporary one, that's what I want to know. Evan Donovan, our wonderful political anchor here at WFLA, my colleague and friend, he's on vacation this week, and I got off the phone with him a short time ago. He's of course enjoying some well-earned time off. I asked him about the implications of this, and he too is trying to, of course, figure out exactly what now happens legally and what Andrew Warren's team has option-wise on the table as far as saving his future as the state attorney of Hillsborough County. Will there be a hearing? Will there be a trial? Will there be an investigation? How can, if there is an investigation, if there is a trial, can it be done without any political circus interfering with the subject matter at hand, with the actual X's and O's of Andrew Warren's conduct and his decisions on cases in Hillsborough County? Because if Ashley Moody is involved in any which way, shape, or form, and I don't know that she would be, of course, the Attorney General for the state of Florida, if Ashley Moody, she was at the press conference. She just spoke. So clearly there is her feelings on the matter are already known. So very, very interesting. Veritas or Veritas, #HeyJB, Catalina, do you think elected officials are above the law? If citizens won't get rid of lawless politicians, thank God we have a governor that will. This is a very interesting comment. And I'll just kind of leave this one as is, because I think that there's interesting back and forth going on here about if an elected official isn't doing their job, how often do people vote them out of office because of the political machine that is powered through the media? Look, it's powered through the media. There's a lot of folks in Hillsborough County that I'm sure have had their aforementioned views of Andrew Warren that didn't know about the individual cases that we just mentioned in this executive order, and now are enlightened to it. So there's a lot of things at play here. But it's a very, very, very fascinating set of events, specifically for Hillsborough County. Again, I'm sure that there were folks that were anticipating some massive nationally televised announcement by DeSantis as to something big that was going to transpire this afternoon, or this morning rather, and were a little bit surprised that this was as local as it was. But again, big deal in Florida, and especially a big deal here in the Tampa Bay area. Let's welcome you back into the Stream Center. JB here with you, and thanks a lot for your comment here, Terry. Let's read through some others. That was an interesting comment from Todd. Where's Todd's comment? I just saw it. It was just on my screen. Todd says, hashtag HJB, maybe Warren should run for governor then. This ship has sailed. There are two candidates, in large part, that are widely considered to be in the driver's seat, if you will, or fighting over the driver's seat if we're playing that game. And that is Charlie Crist and Nikki Fried. Charlie Crist being a former governor of Florida, former Republican governor of Florida. How interesting would it be if it's Charlie Crist against Ron DeSantis and we have two men who have served as a Republican governor of Florida running for governor of Florida? That would be, that of course, I think that in a lot of circles, there are a lot of political experts and analysts who believe that that is going to be the matchup. But not to take anything away from Nikki Fried, agriculture commissioner here in the state of Florida, Democrat, and the only statewide elected Democrat in office right now. That's a huge deal. And Nikki Fried, of course, challenging Charlie Crist for the opportunity to then challenge Governor Ron DeSantis in November. Very, very interesting race, and we've had a lot of coverage on WFLA about the Nikki Fried versus Charlie Crist race, all trying to challenge Governor Ron DeSantis. I'm looking here at my screen. We'll spend another 10 or so minutes going through your comments, questions. Again, a big thank you to our moderators joining us on YouTube Live. Wow, this is also very interesting. I really appreciate this comment from Tyson because I think that Tyson is bringing up an interesting point here. So look, governors, Democratic and Republican, this is not a party thing. Governors look at what other governors are doing in their states to determine what is effective, what generates buzz, what makes headlines, what is riling up their base. Tyson is asking, hashtag AJB, do you think this will set an example that other governors will use? It's an extraordinary use of power to remove a state attorney from office. It's a big deal. Again, elected position. The people of Hillsborough County put Andrew Warren in office. They voted for him. They elected him into office. And for the governor of the state to come down from Tallahassee, to go to Tampa, to say we're removing him from office, it's a big deal. Now, as far as whether or not governors look at what other states are doing all the time to determine what is effective, what is not effective, and whether or not governors, I think we can say with certainty that governors in other states are going to pay attention to this and they're going to look at it. But it's also, there's a dangerous precedent being set here as well because of what we're talking about. Because if governors in other states look at this as a tactic and a way, if they do view this as a way to generate buzz ahead of a particular election, if that is the frame of mind, again, I'm saying that with a big hypothetical if, then will that actually transpire in other states? And does that put various high-ranking officials in other states on notice? These are fundamental questions. But Tyson, I can't say, do you think that this will set an example? But what I will say is that there is no doubt in my mind that governors in other states are paying very, very close attention to this and the fallout. What will happen after this? Is this just as far as all of the announcements, the countless announcements that Governor DeSantis has made in the last year, is this a small little splash in the pond? Is this a big splash in the pond? Is this purely semantics? Is this Governor DeSantis just doing what he feels is right, or was there motivations at play here ahead of, again, re-election in November? All of these questions are going to be asked. They're going to be dissected, and governors in other states are going to be paying very close attention. That is something I think that we can fairly unequivocally say regarding this announcement of Andrew Warren. Look, Rosebud is asking, hashtag KJB, who will be the governor of Florida when DeSantis runs for president? Governor DeSantis in covering Governor DeSantis since the moment he took the oath of office in Tallahassee to be the governor of the state of Florida, he has been solely focused on Florida. Now, and we have a story up on WFLA.com, and I'll read this. We also have a visitor to the Stream Center saying hi to Kevin, by the way. Kevin, I see you over there. How you doing? Kevin, I'll be with you in just a few minutes. We also have a story on WFLA.com. It's the story that's linked in this video, by the way. I want to go back to it, if I can find it. I have way too many tabs open, you guys. You ever just have way too many tabs open and you're trying to find the story? Hold on. We will get there. Here it is. This is the tab I need. So on WFLA.com, Christina Pushaw, who is the press secretary for Governor DeSantis, said that his focus has been on Florida and that it is on Florida. Now, look, if DeSantis is to run for the White House in some period between the end of this year and 2024, of course, it would not be the first time a sitting governor would be running for office, and Governor DeSantis would continue to do his duties as best as possible amid all the speculation. But of course, we're talking about other officials as well who would be aiding with Florida leadership. But we are not there yet. I think that there are a lot of folks who are excited. I think there's a lot of folks that have extreme doubts about Governor DeSantis's political aspirations going forward and whether or not he is going to be a viable candidate. I think that in Republican circles, of course, he is a up-and-comer and somebody who has generated a tremendous amount of intrigue. I think on the other side, Democrats, of course, have extreme concerns about Governor DeSantis and following in the footsteps of Donald Trump. But right now, I want to make this clear. Governor DeSantis and his team members have said that they are solely focused on Florida. And that, of course, is no surprise, considering that he's up for re-election in 2022. Later this year, just a few months from now, Governor DeSantis will be taking on likely either Charlie Crist or Nikki Fried. And that's the focus right now for Team DeSantis. Look, I think should DeSantis win re-election in 2022 in November, I think 2023 is then the year where there's the potential for the page to turn. But between now and Christmas, do not expect any significant announcement of any kind regarding 2024. It's just like, from all indications, it's just not in the cards right now, despite the tremendous amount of interest from members of the GOP. Zert saying #KJB separation of powers. If you suspend an elected attorney and replace him with your own guy, in this case, a woman, that's a huge problem. We should prevent the concentration of power. Is this DeSantis going too far in his exercising of his powers from Tallahassee to remove? Now, look, it's within the Florida State Constitution. He's doing it under Article 4, Section 7 of the Florida State Constitution, where he has the authority to suspend a state officer, such as a state attorney, in this case, Andrew Warren. However, does the rationale mentioned in the executive order constitute the standard required for removing a state attorney from their position? And as well, now what happens from this point forward? Again, I'm unprivy to what this process looks like going forward now. What happens with Andrew Warren's future legally? I think that there's going to be some interesting questions asked, and we're digging into this. Our newsroom, it's located right over there. They're looking into it right now, and we're trying to figure out exactly what the response is. In fact, let's just kind of go back. I want to see Just some of the stuff that has come in. I'm looking for. Wow. Okay, so here we have this. We have some statements that are coming in. Charlie Crist releasing a statement slamming DeSantis as a wannabe dictator following the decision to suspend Andrew Warren. I'll read Charlie Crist again. Charlie Crist, who is running for office, running for governor again here in the state of Florida, putting out this statement. It reads as follows. The people of Hillsborough elected Andrew Warren not once but twice because of his commitment to safety and justice for all people. This action by Governor DeSantis is that of a wannabe dictator who puts partisan politics first. He doesn't give a damn about women or average Floridians. It's a flagrant abuse of power. If Governor DeSantis was truly worried about the people of Florida, he would focus on the affordability crisis that's crushing our state and squeezing working families. Statement from Charlie Crist, former governor of Florida, congressman, and also now a candidate on the ticket, trying to become the challenger on the Democratic side to challenge DeSantis in November. I'm looking for some other statements in my inbox and not seeing other. I think Charlie is the one who got out the statement. Very, very interesting. Yeah, no, some other statements have been coming out, but these are a lot of news going on at this hour, folks. But yeah, again, Zert here saying in our comment, separation of powers. Charlie Crist talking about DeSantis labeling him as a wannabe dictator. There was no doubt that there was going to be significant blowback from this decision to suspend Andrew Warren. And the blowback, I think, is just now beginning with Charlie putting out that statement. I'm very curious to hear from Nikki Fried. I'm very curious, most of all, to hear from Andrew Warren and his response to this, whether or not there's a press conference, a press release, just a simple statement or a tweet put out. Of course, we'll have that for you on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. One or two more comments before we got to get going here, folks, on WFLA Now. Again, a lot of news going on here today, and I'd like to give as many comments, a shout out here as possible. Diantha, younger, hashtag AJB. The state attorney cherry picking which laws to prosecute can be a slippery slope. They should be held to a higher standard, period, regardless of party. This is protecting the state's integrity. Mystery Maven, one of our wonderful moderators, hashtag AJB, there's going to be an onslaught of litigation following this, in my opinion. Sister Gypsy says, hashtag AJB, the state attorney of any city or county takes an oath to uphold the law. Andrew Warren wasn't doing his job. Joe is saying, hashtag AJB, can he remove election officials this way too? I hope our Nebraska governor doesn't try this. I believe he has the authority to remove any state officer. You have tremendous power in Tallahassee when you are in the governor's chair. Tremendous power. And so, yes. I think that's going to do it here for us on WFLA Now. I'll end here with Todd really quickly. Hashtag AJB, did Governor DeSantis mention any amount of time for the suspension? He did not. And that's what I want to know now. The number one question I have is what's next? What happens with Andrew Warren? What legal options does he have? How does he challenge the process? He's an elected person. He has rights too. We don't live in a society where one person can just completely eliminate your political future or your future as an elected official, of course, he is going to have legal options in front of him. What legal options exist, and also, too, us looking into these particular cases that DeSantis accuses Andrew Warren of cherry-picking cases and being very, very selective of the cases that he did and did not choose to prosecute. All of that now is going to come into question. WFLA's team of journalists is working on it right now to figure out exactly looking deeper into the rationale provided in the executive order, as well as determining what's next for Andrew Warren and this legal process that is now going to come as a result of him, DeSantis, announcing the suspension of Andrew Warren through executive order. Live from the Stream Center, JB here with you. Thanks so much for joining us here on WFLA Now. This was a major announcement as teased by Governor DeSantis' team. The announcement was the suspension of Hillsborough County State Attorney Andrew Warren, who has now been replaced by interim State Attorney Susan Lopez, who you heard from there as well in the press conference. If you're joining us on YouTube Live, you can just scroll backwards. If you missed the announcement, you can watch it back. We'll have the latest coverage, all the latest details on this story. Masa Saidi is combing through this right now, as are our other journalists in the WFLA newsroom. All of it coming your way on WFLA.com, the WFLA app, and our newscast tonight on WFLA News Channel 8, your NBC station right here in Tampa Bay. And I would like to say a personal thank you for our commenters like Todd and so many others, countless others that we put up on screen here. I'd like to just take a moment just to thank our commenters for helping me keep the train on the tracks. I was looking for #HeyJB comments, and I was trying to keep things, of course, as appropriate and productive as possible. I did not see too many comments that were inappropriate or had nasty language. I know that they were probably there. Maybe I just got a little bit lucky or fortunate, but the comments were great. I think a lot of great questions and comments that came through from both sides here, asking the right types of questions. So a big shout out and a thank you to our commenters. As I've always said here on WFLA Now, we're always trying to keep things rooted in reality with the work that we do. So thank you so much. Folks, the very latest on this story on WFLA.com, the WFLA app. Thanks so much for watching from the WFLA Now Stream Center.